Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me is a man who shed many tears with me over last night's qualifier, Logan Stone.
Well, we were talking about shedding tears. We're talking about shedding hair. It's a really sad time in our life this year of 2021. It's just not good.
No, yeah, it hasn't been good. So, this team had a lot of – we're going to be talking some U.S. men's national team qualifiers. The result on Thursday, the result yesterday, and maybe we'll touch on the MLS stuff that happened. But mostly qualifier talk today as we have these Labor Day pains here. Not the way we wanted to cover this episode, right? We decided to go live because of the result. I think we would have just done normal recording if we had won, right? But it's going to feel kind of cathartic, I guess, getting it out live.
I'm sad. I'm still mad too. Like I texted you, and I know you and I were the same when we were talking about just the fact that we couldn't sleep on nights like this, and it seems that way with all my sports, and it really sucks because they're all at night. You just kind of sit in your own waste and just try to figure out what's going on. But with this, I mean, there's only so much that you can really cover, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess let's go ahead and get into it, I guess, right? We had the first game against El Salvador in El Salvador, 0-0 result. I have my notes here from the night, okay? So I do have notes here from the night that I was like, this result, not so bad, right? Like, let's not forget El Salvador, pushed Mexico in the Gold Cup. They only lost 1-0 to Mexico. Now, of course, that was a neutral field, but Mexico always usually sells pretty good in the U.S. I mean, so does El Salvador. But I'm pretty sure most seats there were Mexican fans. This was a road result, and we got the point. We have not won at El Salvador since 2004, and before that, 1989 when it comes to qualifiers. So, taking one result at a time, the El Salvador one was like, I was looking a little optimistic. I was, all right, we got the road point. We're good. And yes, it was a winnable game, but I still think it wasn't super winnable in the sense of like the chances we had were mostly like half chances. It was like 3 headers, and that's really the only things that stick out to me. And I think even then, Miles Robinson's header in the first half was probably the best header out of all of them. Like, there was one McKennie got that was off balance and a little too high for him that was probably never going to go in. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's what we're looking at, right? Is a 0-0 result, and we all thought, okay, that's probably decent. It's probably okay, not something we wanted, but with the long slog of a World Cup qualifying through CONCACAF, and it's even longer now because of the 14 games instead of 10. We thought, okay, it's fine. And we made subs reasonably early in that game, 64th minute, in the El Salvador match. But what was your thoughts on the USA El Salvador?
Aside from the early game fireworks and festivities that everybody thought broke people's speakers and stuff because it was awful, I think it went on for like 5 minutes. Like the first 5 minutes, there was fireworks going on. But I mean, the atmosphere, the fireworks, how hard it is to play there. I mean, like you said, I think taking a point, again, we talk about taking a point on the road in CONCACAF, especially in qualifying, and that's what this U.S. team did. I thought there were times where they could have pulled an advantage out, but again, I think in that kind of match, you're playing in a very hostile environment. It's always bad when you've got like the gates, like the real high fences up, and there's like guys with riot shields sitting there because you never
protecting the corners, the players on corners. Like,
yeah, you're never gonna come out of those situations feeling like you've had an advantage at all in the game because the fans are just so passionate, especially over there. So it's but I think taking away a point and then taking away some of the, I guess, the good thing. I mean, I thought Weston McKennie played pretty well. which we'll get into a little bit more of that. So that's fun. But I thought Conrad played pretty well. Miles Robinson looks like he's going to be a number one center back in the future. So I think that's pretty cool, and getting to see him play pretty well. I thought Yedlin played decent. So overall, I thought it was a pretty decent performance. Again, there were times, though, that we really miss having that guy that can put one away. And I think that's a lot with youth. And we'll get into that even more when we get into Canada, because it's a much bigger topic, I think, in that game, where you just don't have guys that finish. And there's nothing in the middle that's going on that's effective.
Yeah, there's a comment from the Final Third show. Our friends over there. Yo to you as well.
Good morning.
I can't wait to get AJ's thoughts on today's or yesterday's results and stuff. So I'll have to listen to their show when that drops. But ultimately, I think the El Salvador result's still okay. I know there's been this push online for people to, not accept not accept the the result of draws away from home against teams in winnable situations. And I'll tell you one thing I don't like. I don't like the push for the media. You know what I'm saying? Like, where they're like, the media is not putting the players accountable enough, or they're not pushing it enough.
What does that even mean?
Like, we're not asking the right question. We're being too easy. We're being too easy on them and allowing them to get points on the road. But for me, that is just that's just it, right? I mean, like, the media is not good. Us asking questions and the media asking questions, I don't think changes anything. There was a ton of questions asked at the end of this result against Canada, and I'm not sure that's going to change anything mentally for the players or anything. They've all said it's not good enough on both of these games, so they know that. They were going in trying to get 9 points, according to Tyler Adams, and I think that's just some naivete, I guess, on this inexperienced squad thinking they're going to be able to go and just get 9 points. And I understand, and this is one of my points here throughout the whole show, because I had this on my notes from the El Salvador game, and it meshes with my thoughts on the Canada game. People keep saying we have to raise our expectations because of the talent on this team and that we're the most talented team the U.S. has seen. But talent is not everything. Experience does matter. And also, how many times do we see in any sport a team that is supposed to be better on paper not have it together because they just don't have the experience, or they're just, they can have all the talent in the world and they don't win. We've played all of our games recently in either Europe or the USA, and all these games against CONCACAF opponents in the Nations League recently and in the in the Gold Cup are hosted here in the USA. So when they play these CONCACAF teams, they're playing at a home field advantage mostly, or a facility advantage, whatever you want to call it. All of these young guys have not played qualifiers in El Salvador before, or when they're going to Honduras. Like, we've had John Anthony Brooks and Pulisic who have been part of qualifying, and that's it. I mean, Yedlin, yes, but he has been pretty much relegated to a backup or third option on right back, second option, I guess, right now. But this may be the most talent we've ever had, but it's not all coaching and it's not all on the players. It's both, as we'll get to with the Canada game, but it's just these players are Champions League quality players not playing up to that standard at all. They're out of ideas. They're not being able to create any chances. Like we said, even in the El Salvador game, it's mostly half chances or trying to score a free kick that, I'll tell you, when we have a free kick in the U.S. for the USA, I never think it's going in. I don't think we're dangerous in that regard.
No, and you can kind of go to that quote. It's, we're out of time. We're out of ideas. He said it last night when he was being interviewed post game. And when he was,
I thought maybe he was commenting on our show.
He was. Yeah, you guys are out of idea. You didn't test them enough. And obviously it broke down. But no, when he said that, he paused as if he was, and you could tell he was upset. Like, you could tell that Pulisic was upset because this is the second time in a row going through this where, I mean, our backs are against the wall. You've got to collect points. It's really hard to collect points on the road. Christian knows that, but I'm not sure the rest of the team, because they haven't been in these situations, haven't felt this. And I think it goes back to what you were saying. Over the summer, when you're playing Gold Cup and you're playing Nations League, it's a different kind of environment. You're playing a lot of those games in the U.S. You're also, you know, it's not a make or break. It's a nice competition to win, but it's not like if you lose those games that the pressure's on for Greg or the team. Whereas now, I think there's got to be some kind of feeling of, oh no, this is what happened last time and it's happening again. And the same kind of format. I mean, it's this idea where we can't score. We seem to defend well enough to be a good enough team to compete, obviously. And I think that the defense was actually our biggest concern. If you go all the way back to probably our previous show, I think you and I talked about the fact that we've got a hole at a couple, like a right back, and trying to find a good right back to play in that position. And does Des play left or right? I mean, we were trying to figure that out. We were trying to figure out who's going to place in next to JV, and I think they found that answer pretty quickly. And they've got really good options with Mark McKenzie and Zimmerman on the bench. So I think those are really solid. Chris Richards isn't even with the team. So I think the defense has plenty of options and guys that are stepping up, like a Miles Robinson, like an Anthony Robinson, who played well last night. I think you've got guys in the defense that step up. Now, the one point where we really thought there was a headache, it's proven to be the one headache that they can't seem to solve. And I don't know, where do you go for that? I mean, do you go to a Daryl DK who is not experienced in this? Do you rely on an 18-year-old kid who's in good form in MLS to come in and try to fit into the mold? Does PFOC really fit the kind of system that Greg wants? And is he good enough to create, or the wings good enough to create? Because Pulisic has been non-existent. Brendan Aronson probably has been our best player over the last 2 games. So I think that, you know, in the attack at least, where he's put in good time, and it really just depends. And then you're trying to play positions or players out of positions, and it's just not going well.
Yeah, players out of position, late subs. So it's players out of position in the first game. The second game didn't really have any players out of position, but we had no substitutes until the 82nd minute.
Yeah.
So let's go to Canada game, because I think this is the more egregious one, and it's not I saw a lot of people say it's a embarrassment. I wouldn't even say it. Canada has been very good. I saw some people blaming MLS for this somehow. We didn't have that many MLS players on the pitch, and actually Canada had more than us, I think. Yeah. And I don't get it. It's like the thing people resort to, I guess, right away. But if people are going to say that the MLS players are not up to snuff, then these Champions League players have got to do something. The goal that we give up here, I was going to try to go in order, but I just got to mention it. John Anthony Brooks gets beat. He's jogging back. He's not running. He loses his guy. And Kyle Aaron is just there to tap it in. That shouldn't happen when you play for a Champions League team and you're Wolfsburg and a Bundesliga side. What are you doing? Look, people were really torching Yedlin on that for getting torched by Alphonso Davies. That's going to happen. Alphonso Davies is like one of the best players in the world at this point, best player in CONCACAF, whatever you want to say. So you have to expect that to happen, but you have to then make sure there's nobody for him to get the ball into, and Brooks doesn't do that. He just stands there and he's watching the ball.
Yeah, and Alfonso's not going to create from on that. I mean, he's not going to score on that side. So you're looking for him to swing one in. And like you said, Anthony Brooks, he stops right where he thinks, I think Davies is, so that he can't play anybody on side. But then there's clearly, I mean, he's far enough down the pitch where he's playing them on side. Like, he's not quite with Davies. He's kind of playing right in front. And then he just looks at the ball like, oh, that's not good, as it crosses the front of goal. So it was just horrible defending. Like you said, Davies, and we can talk about this a ton, but Davies is so good. He's so fast. He ran through Des a couple times. Des can't defend him. He can't defend anyone.
He plays for a team that never has to worry about it. Like he's playing for Barcelona, where he's supposed to go forward and attack. And this has always been my complaint about, call me an old man or whatever, but I got these complaints about attacking fullbacks where they don't know how to defend. And then when you actually need them to defend, we talked about it with Dest before because, Barcelona pulled him, or Barcelona fans were giving him crap last year. It was, I think, in a game where he wasn't doing well at defense and they had to sub him out for a better defender right back. And they're like, well, that's his job. He's a right back. That's your job. And I get it. Some, soccer can change. Formations can change. And now people use these right backs and left backs to try to get more people playing and overlapping runs and all that kind of stuff. But you have to be able to also defend. Like, I don't understand why these players like Dest or any attacking right back that starts out, attacking now, why they don't learn the defense first and then just start throwing in their speed as a second thing. It's like, it's almost like they just convert wingers to right back and they're like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, you're doing the same thing. But when it comes time to defend, they can't.
Right. I think it does it better if we talk about Canada some here, because I think Canada played extremely well. I thought Richie Laryea looked really good. I thought Mark-Anthony Kaye looked really, really good. Alphonso Davies is just so threatening when he goes flying up the side. Kyle Larin, again, he's a very serviceable number 9. Alistair Johnson played well. It's a matter of Canada having a better side than I think people thought. I think people thought they were kind of just a little bit behind as far as development, the United States, but I think they're different in the way that they have Alphonso Davies, and he's a game changer where if you're looking at the United States teams, I guess the team, I think the only player on that roster that has that capability is Pulisic, and I don't know if he's quite fit to do that, and there's times where he just disappears, where he's not that threatening, and that showed. I mean, he doesn't have anybody to put the ball into, and that takes away his effectiveness sometimes. But there were times last night where he got out on the wing and he didn't come inside to try to create something in the middle and break the line. But it shows because they just don't have anybody to get on the end of those plays. But I mean, Canada, they were waiting back. They put 5 in the back more often than not, and they basically lured the United States. If you look at the possession was something crazy. It was like 72 for the United States, I think. So if you're looking at possession, you're looking at the way that Canada lined up. Canada's saying, I'm going to put 5 back here, and if you can break us, then break us. But the United States can't. It kind of reminded me of what Tuchel did to City. If you're just going to sit out here and not create, we'll just put 5 back here, and we'll just kind of hold you into this pattern where you're in the midfield trying to pass and you can't really create anything passes in the back and over the top because we're not going to give anything up. And I felt like that's what Canada did, and they did it really well, and nobody created. I mean, it was really hard to get anything created back on that back 5 or whatever they had, where those 2 wing backs would come back and kind of sit back too. So they had basically everybody defending. The United States can't do anything.
Canada finally has a manager. I mean, they have a manager that goes in with game plans. They know what they're doing, and they just executed that flawlessly. Now, they did have a drop of points at home as well, so I know, they've probably think that they could have gotten 6 points out of these 2 games and end up with 2. So I think they're a little frustrated as well. But to get a draw in the USA for them is pretty good. But, I mean, we're actually lucky we got a draw. Yeah. After how well they were playing, and if Alphonso Davies doesn't have to leave the pitch, maybe they get a win.
We were definitely on our back heels in the last 20 minutes. It definitely felt after he gets that goal, it definitely started to feel like he was getting more involved, and that's terrifying because he's one of those guys that can just create at will. And he was, and it was getting guys open in the middle of the box. And there's a couple of times where they kind of rattled around and were finding guys. And luckily, I think Yedlin got on the end of one, and then Sebastian Lletget somehow found one rattling around where he kind of stopped somebody from kicking it right outside the box. But it seems that the United States really got lucky just because the momentum was definitely shifted until Davies got hurt. Then it kind of felt like it was an even match again.
All right, let's get into a little bit more here. some of my frustrations with it is this is going to sound like a rant, I guess. Okay. Where was the fight in this? Where was the urgency? There was times where we had, 2 minutes of stoppage time left, and we're making passes to the center backs, back to the center back, back to the next center back, back to the next center back, and you're like, we have to go forward. The 90 minutes is up. You got to start just putting the ball in there, when it's that late in the game, because Canada was so well organized. You're not going to break them down by just doing lateral passes with 2 minutes left of the game. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I felt like there was no fight in these players. Like, one thing I read as well that I think is true is I saw somebody comment on Twitter. I don't know who it was. I can't credit them, but pretty much saying that they need to, not that we're soft, right? But like, these players from Europe are getting fouled and they're expecting these calls to be made like they would in Europe, and they're not going to be. And you have to know that. You have to act like each time you're fouled, get right back up, because they're not calling it for you, is how I think we have to start playing, and just start playing as if we're not going to get calls, because most of the time we're not going to get the calls. So, and I don't know if it's just hard to switch on and switch off from like how you play in Europe to when you go to CONCACAF, but I feel like if I was a player, and I'm not, but if I was a player, it'd be almost like, okay, almost the same way you have different tactics for who you're playing against. It's like, okay, I'm playing in Europe now, so this is how a game might get called. And now I have to play in CONCACAF where I know I'm not getting any calls. So I know I have to hop back up. I have to do all this. Almost like, baseball players talk about it all the time, but like if there's a certain ump, they know if the strike zone is going to be wider or taller or shorter, And I feel like that's how we have to start looking at it when we know we have CONCACAF refs to when we have European refs, how this game's going to be called, because that is something I think that we're lacking. I don't know if that's a player thing or a coach thing or what, but I feel like there's got to be some sort of drive to know we can get a little CONCACAF-y as well, and we don't need to, we're not going to get calls a lot of the time, or if we get calls, especially with VAR, there's no VAR right now in this qualifying. So, just you're not going to get the call. They're not going to look at it. Just get up and continue seeing out what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think the one call that was, I don't even think it was worth a call, was the Josh Sargent one. He's running across, and I thought the guy got the ball, and he kind of just flops like he would in England, and luckily he got it because he was going away. It was a real nice cut, but I don't think he got fouled on it. And I think there's points where they look as if they're, like you said, looking for it. But again, it was hard to tell because they're always playing on the wing. I mean, they're playing so wide. I saw a comment on Twitter too. It was almost like the United States, if they moved the goals to the side of the pitch, we would be really good because that's where most of the ball was. And then I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, Leggett was the only one consistently going into the middle and then getting caught up with the ball, and then the ball would get loose. But he was the only one that was like physically, him and Brendan Aronson. Aronson did too, because there was a point where I texted you and I was like, Aronson just gets in the middle and he has the ball, but he's got nowhere to go with it, and he's looking around going, okay, I need help, but Pulisic isn't going to provide it, and neither's PFOC.
No space creation.
No, there's
and
not.
What happens is a lot of these players, for whatever reason, are deciding that they're going to just dribble, right? Like Aronson's been guilty of it. Pulisic is guilty of it for sure. Dest has been guilty of it, where they just get the ball and they think, I'm going to take on 3 players by myself right now because nothing else is working. I feel like is what they're trying to do, and nothing happens. They maybe get fouled. Pulisic maybe gets fouled at the edge of the box, but we're never going to score that. We don't have anybody that's going to put in a set piece, especially if it's right outside the box. I don't have any faith. Now, if it's further outside the box where we can maybe get it to a center back to head it in, then that's probably better. But I don't know. Another thing with me too is, why are there subs in the 82nd minute when there's 3 games in 7 days?
Yeah.
We played on Thursday. We played on Sunday. We play on Wednesday. That's actually like 6 days, right? Like 7 days. And the first game, we made subs timely, 64th minute. This game, even the commentators are saying how slow our players are looking, how out of gas they're looking. In the 60th minute, they're talking about this, and we wait another 20 minutes to make the substitute. If we would have lost this game, it would have been on the substitutions, because you cannot expect to look. They started prepping these subs in like the 78th, 79th minute, I think. But by the time the ball gets out of play for them to come in, it's 82nd, 83rd minute. Then they get in and have to get a feel of the game, and then they have to actually try to get touches, and then they have to try to influence themselves. Roldan came in and immediately tried to make a good pass that then gets caught up and lost after he does. And after that, we end up they bring in Conrad, and he barely touches the ball.
Right.
Like I think there's only like 2 instances off the top of my head without rewatching it that I can remember Conrad touching the ball, and he does nothing with it because he was actually more like almost right central of the field. Like he wasn't on like a wing where he would usually be able to get that space. He was getting it off a throw-in, I think it was. Is the time I remember.
Weston McKennie role. Like it looked like the Weston McKennie where he kind of sits back in the midfield, and that's not what he does. So it's not. But also, like it's going to be effective.
Yeah, we need to be able to save the legs that were out there for Wednesday as well, because Pulisic, like you said, we don't know if he's going to be able to go. He's not going to be able to go 90, I don't think, on Wednesday, right? Like he had a 10-day layoff due to COVID. It doesn't seem like he had any symptoms, but he wasn't training that whole time because he was forced into isolation with the UK rules. So then he comes over here and has to almost start over from scratch of training, doesn't go to El Salvador, comes back, and they didn't know if he would be able to play yesterday, but he did. And he went 90. Okay, next thing I have here is, did we buy into our own hype? And by we, I mean the players, by the USA here. Alexi brought up some good points, as much as people dislike Alexi Lalas. These young players have had everything given to them. They're playing in world-class facilities in Europe, or they're getting good facilities in MLS that are up and coming. And they are not cutting it. Tyler Adams said they expect 9 points this window. They didn't get it. That's naive, I think. And I also think that maybe they thought that they would just get the 9 points, that there'd be no issue. And there is an issue. We're like we said, we're not able to get any sort of chances created. They're just making passes and not doing anything with it. And I think part of that is Berhalter, because it's very reminiscent of when we had the Gold Cup team, which is different players, and other teams with different players where they're just, sometimes there's no urgency. And I don't understand why. Let's talk Weston McKennie then, because he apparently broke protocols. Some rumor going around online, by the way. Somebody just shared this. They think that as he was walking in somewhere or in El Salvador, he was maskless and signing autographs. I don't know if that's it. I don't know if that would be enough to get him benched. I think he really broke some protocols. It sounded like Berhalter alluded more to a curfew type of thing. And if that's the case, Weston McKennie needs to grow up. Let's not forget, he broke protocols in Italy and threw a party during COVID.
It was a birthday party, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah. And yesterday, he missed the game due to the breaking protocol. People had him pinned in as a captain. I think that's clear he's not. He's just the goofy guy.
He's the sideshow.
And if he wants to be, because Greg said he may not even be able to play Wednesday. And the only thing I can think of is if he did break curfew and they're worried about him coming back positive with COVID, they do not want him
near the team.
Yes, he showed remorse on his Instagram. He did the same thing when he did it in Italy. Is this a learning? Like, does he actually learn this time or not? Because I'm not going to go as far as to say what other people said, that if he's playing, we win the game, because I don't think it's true. I don't think this team creates enough goals to beat this team with Weston McKennie in there. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on McKennie? Because it seems like this might become a problem, and he might work his way out of the U.S. team.
Inexcusable, unacceptable, immature. I mean, you could go on and on. You're selfish. You have a priority. You have a responsibility to your teammates. Like, this has nothing to do with Greg. So I hate when people say, well, this is going to cause a big problem between he. It's not between he and Greg. Like, this is Greg punishing him because the players can't really. Like,
but too, if you make protocols and you don't enforce them, then nobody's going to follow them. So you have to. It's not like it's not like you can just ignore it.
Right, and it goes back to that, like the ethics of you can't just give one player an exception because he's a star player. And I think that is a mentality that he has. I think that he believed that he could go out of his way to break these protocols and wouldn't get punished for it, and he did. And I think that it just shows you, like, it's it's like 10 days, 12 days. Just calm down, do what you need to do. Don't break the rules. Don't be stupid, and just play soccer. You can go do whatever you want when you get back over to England, because I think they've got in Italy, where they have restrictions that are lighter. And I think that, he took it selfishly upon himself to go have fun, and now he's paying for it. And now the whole team suffers because of it. Do I think they would have won? No. Like you said, this team goes far beyond the Weston McKennie could have changed his game, because he's not changed any game that I've ever seen. So no, he doesn't have that changing the game abilities yet. And this team was already going to struggle with him. So without him, but then it's a distraction too. Like, I've played sports, and when something happens and your teammate's suspended, it's more of a distraction just because you're curious about the situation, because oftentimes this is handled between player and coach, and you're kind of going, dude, what the heck? And then it gets to a point where I think it's distracting for the team, because the team's showing up, and now somebody has to slot in. And unfortunately, it was Kellen Acosta, who, while he played well in Gold Cup, he's not a creative midfielder by any stretch of the means. I mean, there's times where he gets it and goes, okay, I don't really know what to do with this. Where Matt Weston's a much more attack-minded player, but it's selfish. That's the best word I can come up with for Weston. Selfish to not think about the repercussions that it has on your team.
Then we had a breakaway that was called back because of Tyler Adams deciding to hockey check somebody. He started the breakaway, and then he immediately ends it with them. Yeah. Why? I want to see fight, but I don't want to see that, because that was pointless. That hurt us. Immaturity. It's the youth. Like, it. While I know that we expect them to do good things, and you're like, okay, this is a top talent, they're still so young. And and part of I like what I think Kellen said it best. He talks about the idea that, like, this is still a young team, and while we're learning it's still a very young team in the way that we're disciplined. So, like, creating when nothing is able to be created is something of an experienced player, right? So, like a Kevin De Bruyne, or you're looking at like a Kai Havertz or somebody like that. Like, that's experience. Like, having the experience to kind of look around and go, okay, here's what's happening. Nothing's being created. I can create here and here. I'm going to pick out my chances and break lines. I'm going to break down the defense by myself. We don't really have that. Like, Christian's the only one. I'll tell you who does have it, and he's not with the team. I think Matthew Hoppe is a CONCACAF style player. He's right. He's gritty. He's just mean. Like, he's a mean mug. He will kill you, I think, if you give him the chance. And just go back and watch the games. He's got that grit to where he's going to make himself open, and he's going to break lines. And he shoots. Yes. He actually shoots the ball. Right. Right. And sometimes he gives the ball away, but you take that. With a young player, that's what you want. You don't want and Brendan does it too. Brendan is very good at it. He's very gritty. He likes to get in there and kind of tassel with people. Christian's not like that. Christian, he can be at times, but then there's times where he's more of a finesse, and that works really well in Europe. Like, he works very, very well in Europe, which, if we do get to a World Cup against a European team, I actually think he'll be better when he's playing against those kind of teams than he is with these teams that try to smash you in the face, because I don't think he's got quite that
grit, that hoppy, that I think Sargent has it too. He just doesn't have the running ability to get in good runs. But and then I think of Brendan Aronson. I think that's the kind of grit you need. Whereas like Weston and Christian, and that's much more of a European style, like you were talking about. The Tyler Adams thing is just an immature thing. Like they do very immature things when they're out there. They do things that are silly. I think, who was it that took a free kick and kicked it about, I think it was Acosta. He kicks it and it goes about halfway up into the bleachers, and they're like, that's not smart. Like that's just not, give your chance, give a team a chance.
Give a team a chance. Whip it into the box. We don't have to score off of a 30-yard shot.
Right. And I think like the biggest thing too is that when you saw chances being created, it was because like Anthony Robinson created that chance because he just whips a ball in and Brendan's there. Canada wasn't going to defend very well. You could see it. There was another time too. I think it might have been Miles Robinson or Christian that puts one in and it rattles around and Josh almost got to it. It was like falling around because Canada they're not able to deal with it because their defense is probably their weakest link. That center, and I think that's where the United States they wouldn't attack it. It was like they were afraid of it.
Just whipping in ball. Yeah, that's all we were doing.
Yeah. It's immaturity, it's inexperience.
Yeah. 4 years ago, U.S. men fans blamed U.S. soccer for hosting a game, I guess I forget who it was against, El Salvador, I think, or Honduras, in New York, because we lost or drew that match, and it was something that prevented us from qualifying. A lot of people, kind of think, but they were saying that it felt too much like an away game and stuff. Okay, no excuses here. We had 43,000 people in Nashville chanting and willing the players on that just looked lifeless at times. I saw some people complaining about the way it came across on TV, but people that were actually there said it was really loud, and I could hear them on my TV.
Yeah.
Chanting the USA chanting, I believe that we will win, which unfortunately they were wrong. And, doing all kinds of things. So for me, I felt like the atmosphere was great. People that were actually there said it was great. So I don't know if it's just something on the Fox broadcast made it feel not that way. But it comes down to this. We cannot, I repeat, miss another World Cup. So we got to fix it. And we got to fix it now. So I ask you, if we lose in Honduras, is Greg Berhalter gone?
Yeah. Yeah, if you lose in Honduras and we go out of this first window, we have time to catch up. It's hard. It will be hard, but it's not unheard of. I think 6 out of the 8 teams have dropped points at home. So that wasn't a big deal to me. And honestly, I think Canada does qualify. With how good they looked. I think they look really good. I think they're coming into form. I think that they easily push for one of the 4 spots to try to qualify, the first 3 qualifying, or maybe that 4th spot to go play a playoff and try to qualify. I think that Canada has like that grit and that coach that urges them on. Like last night, Jordan, when they fell behind and Alfonso came out in that second half, that was urgency. Like you tweeted about it and you talked about it now. It's urgency. It was like, and you could see that coach was just like fired up. Now, Greg, like while he is good at recruiting, while I do think the players like him, there's times where I'm like, why isn't he like mad? Like, why isn't he? He just sits. He does the Frank thing, and it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's very Lampard-esque, right?
Yes.
Where he's just gonna sit there and take his notes or just watch, and that's what Lampard did. And there's sometimes he got frustrated. He got really frustrated at Reina on the El Salvador game because he misplayed a ball near the end of the game, and he was very upset with that. And I liked seeing that more than what we kind of saw in this game, because it's just I don't even know what to say about it. He already has said now that he should have probably pulled the subs earlier, but that's not good enough for now. That already happened, right? So now we have to go into Honduras. It's a away game. Let me look at our record here against against Honduras in qualifiers. 2015 to 2017. In the 5th round, we had we drew with Honduras in the 5th round. We beat them at home 6-0, but away from home was 1-1. At home in 2011 to 2013 qualifiers, we beat them home. We lose to them away in 2013. We beat them away in 2008 and 2008 or 2009. We beat them at home, lose to them at home in 2000, 2001. Beat them away in 2000, 2001. I mean, so we usually... It's going to be tough to even get a point from Honduras.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. We've done points a lot of times. We don't lose there too much. But let's see. The last time we lost in Honduras was the 2013. And we qualified for 2014. But, when you already have just 2 points, if we look at the standings, let me share this real quick here. Okay. We have Mexico in first with 6 points. Panama in second with 4 points. They're the only 2 teams to win a game.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Canada in third with 2 points. Honduras in fourth with 2 points. U.S. in fifth with 2 points. El Salvador in sixth with 2 points. So we're still there, right? It's not panic time.
No.
Yet. It's as close to panic time I think we can get until, maybe Wednesday if we lose.
I was going to say Wednesday would be panic if you lose.
Wednesday is panicking time if we lose. And if we don't fire Greg, then...
When do you?
Because if you don't... So here's the thing, because if you wait until after 6 games, which is October's window, you're already almost halfway through qualifying because of how truncated it all is this time, right? And if you fire him in the middle of one of those 3 games in October, you have to find somebody that's going to be able to step in within the week. Right? These games are within a week time span each window. So who would be able to step up in that quick of time? I actually don't know who we would even be able to get if we fired him. We wouldn't want to repeat of Bruce Arena, even though how well he's been doing at Revs, because that failed last time. Who would we even get?
Well, that's what I was thinking about. I was like, okay.
Marsh is not leaving
Leipzig
right now.
Right.
He's not going to.
I mean, if you're looking at it, like all the guys that you would want, honestly, I think would be in MLS, but you're not going to get them until they're done.
And you can't get a foreign coach, I don't think, right now if you're going to do it, because they're only going to have maybe 3 weeks to evaluate the pool if they're not used to the pool. It would have to be a foreign coach that is already familiar with the U.S. pool.
Could you imagine if they gave the team to Jason Kreis? It would be like, oh no.
There's no way you can after the U23s, but you never know, right?
I mean, the only out, like, unless they have somebody internally that we just don't know, like, there might be somebody on the inside that would do it. I mean, at this point, like, if we lose on Wednesday, at this point, I'm looking at, and this is going to sound funny because I'm looking at like a Landon Donovan going, hey, can you just come in?
Can you leave San Diego and coach this team, please? Because and if nobody listened to his podcast with Grant Wall about El Salvador, that was really good. Grant Wall is having on his podcast Landon Donovan after each qualifier, and I know he wasn't that great on TV, Landon on Fox as an analyst, but he was really good on the podcast and really explained kind of what it's like to go to El Salvador away. And I want to hear his thoughts about this game too. But I think, we're kind of at this point where obviously it's not as easy as it once was. Canada has not qualified since 86. This is the furthest they've gotten in a while. And they're looking like a pretty good team that can qualify for a World Cup. And you know why? Because of MLS, honestly. Alphonso Davies was, an MLS product Mark Anthony Kaye has been very good. They're creating players. Kyle Laren, they're creating players through the Canada MLS teams, and then getting drafted or going to the colleges in MLS and then in USA, and then getting drafted to MLS. And it is helping teams like Canada. Honduras has players over here. Jamaica has players over here. It's helping all of these teams that are not us. I mean, it helps us as well. Like Brendan Aronson really came up through, MLS, and some of these players have. But it's now catching everybody else up in the region, and that's kind of the give and take you have to deal with when you have a league in the USA, because you're not always just going to have a team full of Americans, right? You're not going to have like the Philadelphia Union just put out Americans. They're going to get players from all over the world, and they're going to help bring in players that like Andre Blake or Corey Burke, players that are going to be able to come up and help Jamaica now are getting game time against really good teams in MLS, and it's making them better. It makes Jamaica better. And, it's doing the same thing for Canada. They're finally getting the fruit of the tree, that they've kind of planted when they started having MLS teams in Canada. So it was inevitable. But when your players are now over in Europe all the time, they should still be beating these MLS or USL teams of players that are on the field, but they're not. Part of it is the coaching and the tactics, but I think part of it is the players. Look, you can't really say much about the Nashville game, but when we're looking at the El Salvador game, and you have players like Brooks who had to miss it because of the long flights, or you have not just the referee situation that we were talking about, like how do you adapt to a game in CONCACAF, but also the facility style. Mm-hmm. If they're playing on all these pristine fields over in Europe and they get all these great facilities, then they come over here and have to deal with that. It can throw them off more than when we had teams of MLS players on the men's team where they're playing in like Soldier Field or stadiums that were not MLS soccer specific. And for them, they probably didn't have great facilities as a like third team in a stadium that wasn't theirs. So they weren't as thrown off by those facilities when they go to El Salvador or Honduras. And now they're playing on the best fields ever, Stamford Bridge, and these beautiful fields over there that have everything. And then they come over here and don't, and they get bags of urine thrown at them, or they get stuff thrown at them that they're not used to. And I think that's something that is the adjustment that has to be made as well. That's the experience they still have to get. And we've missed this whole generation. There was a generation of players that just never came in. Mm-hmm. The Breck Shea generation, I call it, where they were promising and then never developed and, are now gone. Like Breck Shea is not good enough to be on the men's team, and his whole generation worth of players that would bridge the Landon Donovan, Dempsey, Michael Bradley, Altidore generation to this new generation is not there. Now we're left with John Anthony Brooks and Pulisic as the only ones having experience. And they're all so young, like you said.
Sorry, my cats are attacking each other.
That's okay.
Hold on. There we go. All right.
The magic of live podcasting.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. But no, I like you said, not having the experience of those guys in and around, because you had when you had younger guys, like when Yedlin was young, right? I can remember back to that World Cup team when he was there, Julian Green. I mean, those kind of guys, but they've disappeared because, like you said, I think the development isn't there in the United States men's team for a while, and I think that that's part of the issue. Now I think we got into the issue where, I like Greg, and do I think Greg can do a good job? Yeah, but I don't know. Is he really the one that you want at the helm? It just really sucks because you wouldn't want to fire a manager in the middle of qualifying and then kind of tear it down and find somebody else. I don't know who you're going to find anyway. I just don't think there's enough out there. Maybe Conte wants to coach here, but
But that's the thing. He wouldn't know anything about these players.
No idea.
He would have no time. He'd have
no
time. Yeah, he'd have no time.
So who do you go to? Like, you have to go to one of your formers, maybe? I don't know. Like, I don't know who you go to.
And that's what we tried last time.
Yeah. Do you turn to Jurgen and go, hey, you free?
Oh, no.
So,
you know what this team reminds me of? It reminds me of a Jurgen team. He would get no difference. You would get no difference if you put Jurgen Klinsmann coaching.
But I don't know. Chris Armas is free. So I have no idea. Like, maybe just throw on a full press and play back five.
Let's do it. Get
Brendan going and
get Chris Armas in here.
Brendan knows the system, but like you said, I just don't think that there's any way around this. I think that you're stuck with Berhalter if he is going to manage. He's going to manage through this window. I would hope they wouldn't give it to somebody like Jason Kreis or somebody like that.
Or Josh Wolf. He's been an assistant, but he hasn't proved anything in Austin to be a U.S. men's to become a U.S. men's manager. I mean, really, you'd be looking at 2026. Maybe Jesse Marsh is the coach, and I think that would work out well.
Or a Jim Curtin, or
I still don't know if Jim's good enough for this level. I mean,
Do you think Oscar would ever?
That's who I wanted. That's who I wanted.
Vermees,
Vermees would be good.
Yeah,
we would at least have the grit. we would. I mean, he is somebody you don't want to piss off, and he would be pissed off on the sideline. Peter Vermees would be great. And you know what?
Bradley.
I think Vermees is the only one I could see actually filling in if Berhalter had to go. Because I think
with the they can still coach their club team, can't they? Because they're all like it.
FIFA lets us, but no, I don't know. I don't know, because could you do something if you're Vermees where you say to SKC, like, I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back right after qualifying?
Yeah.
Or is it at that point we'd want him for the World Cup too if he qualified us, right? So he might have to leave, but I would take Vermees over Berhalter. I would take him. I wanted him over Berhalter originally.
I think you'd take him over a lot of people. But Peter Vermees is a really good coach.
Just for the fire he would bring on the sideline, I think that could really help this team.
And a young team. Like, he's used to having younger players that he can control. Like a Busio. Like, I think Weston McKennie would benefit from a Peter Vermees lashing. Like, I think that like Peter coming in and stepping in and doing that. I think Oscar Pareja would be really good. I think I think Jim's going to go Europe and then have interest in international, maybe, because I think
we'll see.
But again, Jim signs up for another couple of years in Philly, and he likes being where he is, and just unbelievable style as it is. But Caleb Porter's going to be free soon if you really want to mess with that. Bob Bradley's going to be free, I think, if you want to talk to him and say, hey, LAFC's not going so well.
I take Bob over Berhalter anyway. I know people didn't like Bob at times, and I called for Bob to get fired, and I wanted Klinsmann, and that failed. But Bob's team, got to the Confederations Cup final in 2009. They had the grit, they had the run through a brick wall mentality, and that's missing. That is what's missing.
Yeah, Greg Vanny's been thrown out there. So you've got options if you can't. Now, if I had to pick, like you said, I think it would be Peter Vermees. Now that I think of the list, I think he would be, if I was going to grab somebody and have them coach, who I think even a team like. And
a quick turnaround, too. He's the best option, I think.
Yeah. But again, it would be, can he do that with MLS, concurrently go with MLS? And I think their next window is October.
Yeah.
And so you would you'd be right up against playoffs. So then you would miss him. So I think SKC would have an issue with it, but your other next bet is to pluck off somebody that's either going to get fired from their MLS team, is fired from
or
their
an
MLS
assistant
team,
somewhere, and that's not what you want.
Academies, or maybe their academy coaches have. I know there was one that they were really high on, but again, do you really want an academy coach stepping right up into the big leagues with that system? Probably not, right? So Jason Kreis would be ultimate. I think he would just be your next in line, because I think he would be the only one.
I don't think they would even touch him.
And I hope not.
I would rather have Greg Berhalter, even if we lose to Honduras, than going to get Jason Kreis, because Jason Kreis already failed at the his chance of qualifying.
Clint is free. Clint is not doing anything. Timmy
I
Howard is at NBC. Like,
I don't think any of those are coaches.
Coach.
I don't think any of those are coaching mind.
I'm just trying to come up with options because I think the pickings would be somebody internally.
Like, we get Dax.
Yeah, Dax McCarty would be great. Jamie Watson.
Twellman has responded to the McKinney getting off the bus without a mask and stopping for autographs. Twellman says that is not the reason. So Twellman's pretty tapped in. I would say that he would know better than some accounts speculating on that being the reason for Weston missing the game. So Twellman said that isn't the reason why. So I think we have to take that and kind of throw it in the trash then.
So like the big issues, I mean, obviously the cohesiveness, like the cohesiveness was a big issue, which, I mean, okay, think about it. The cohesiveness is a big issue. The players seem to be playing on their own individual levels. Like they want to do individual things and they're not playing as a unit. Like, I'm not saying they're selfish, but they're not figuring out
what you're saying. They're not playing like a team. They're playing like a collection of people.
Right. Really talented individuals. And then I think you've got that combined with the issues of like the sub issue is a big thing. Like that is a huge thing. If I'm a soccer coach and I look out there and it's a 1-1 draw and nothing that they're doing obviously is going to give you that advantage. Why
should have been right after the goal.
Right after the goal. And then Canada makes 3 subs in the 58th and then like the 63rd or 4th or something like that, 65th. Why not with them make at least one to match them? You're playing with 3 new players on the pitch and they're all Canadian and they're really good midfielders and attacking players. Jonathan David played, Tejan Buchanan came on. So like if you're going to match their intensity, you've got to have that same kind of energy, and none of the midfielders were providing anything. I actually thought the one person that didn't deserve to go off went off. I think Brendan, out of all of them, I don't think he was as gassed as Pulisic. I think Pulisic was just gassed. I think he got to a point where he just looked awful. He needed to come off. Kellen Acosta needed to come off. And that's where you put Roldan in. Like, Roldan's a firecracker. Like, it might not be pretty sometimes, but he's going to do it. Like, he's going to force his hand. So I think it became an issue of that. And that, like, if you think of those 3 things I just mentioned, that's poor coaching. Like, that's, like, yes, I don't want to blame Greg because a lot of it has to do with these players just not creating and not having that attacking player. And that's the other thing I want to talk about is, like, we don't have the guy. Like, we don't have a guy that we just turn to and go, hey, go get us some goals, like a Bruno Fernandes, or you're looking at like a Lukaku or somebody like that. We don't have that guy that sits there and goes, hey, I'm going to get you some goals. Let me just figure it out. This is not that kind of team, nor do I think we ever have that talent. Like, I don't think we've ever had that talent unless you look back at the Landon Donovan days. So it's like, who do you turn to and go, get me goals? I need them now. And I think that one person, again, is off the roster. I don't think he'll come over this window because I think even if they call, where did he end up?
Mallorca?
Yeah, or Mallorca. There we go. Mallorca. There you go. Mallorca. And like he's getting fit with them and he just got transferred. He just transferred over to them. So I think that's been the thing. So I don't think you'll see Hoppy. I think DK is more of a reasonable replacement.
And he just scored. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and he's back to being fit. I think you're liable to see him Wednesday. Maybe on the not starting, but on the bench. And then I don't know who else you call in. I think you take a look at trying to call in another midfielder, but I don't know who that would be because of Reyna or a winger. But
why not Chris Mueller?
Yeah,
I know he hasn't been great this year, but we need wingers bad. We need wingers bad. And once Weah went down, I don't know why we didn't call anybody in.
Yeah. I like what Doyle said. Doyle, I think it was Doyle or Goss. One of them goes, "You know who this team misses? Jordan Morris." I was like, he'd be perfect if he was fit. Like
Greg even mentioned him. He said, like with Weah out, Morris out, and I think he mentioned another player that was injured out. They were just kind of unlucky with the wingers right now.
Reyna's hurt, so
you have Chris Mueller. You could call in and be a winger if you need an emergency winger and you can't get. Hoppy's not really a winger, but he played well there in the thing. But to your point about the substitutions, Kyle Larin scores in the 65th minute. Canada says, let's go for this. They bring in Buchanan for Hoylett and Jonathan David for Kyle Larin. And the USA says, oh, you're bringing in fresh legs? We'll wait another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just pointless to keep talking about it, I guess. But and then they bring in 2 more in the 77th before we even make subs again. So they were really going for it, and they had a chance to.
They felt like the home team. Like they literally felt like the home team. That's what a home team does. You gun for it.
Yep. Yep.
You don't just
and their coach said after the end of the game, like, hey, we thought that one was there for the taking. Like, we're going to try our best. Now, we're all bunched up at 2 points. Again, we can kind of reset and think, okay, get a point in in Honduras. We got a point in El Salvador. We got a point at home. Get a point in Honduras, finish with 3, or somehow get 3 points in Honduras and finish with 5, and you're looking at an okay window. 5 points is okay. 7 points would have been good. 9 points would have been fantastic. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
If we end with 2 points, that's very pitiful. 3 points is manageable at the worst. At the best way to describe it, it would be manageable.
Right.
3 is still not great, but right now that's what we have to hope for is 3 points.
We also need to hope that Panama and Mexico tie, because if Mexico wins, that's one spot pretty much taken up.
No, that's what we want. We want Mexico to rip through all of these teams. They need to beat every single team. That's what we need.
That's true. Like, if we're going to have them get away, I guess we just let them get away. And
let them get first place. We'll get second or third.
Okay. Yeah, because then you're trying to play with fire with Mexico, and that's never fun. That's true. I didn't think of that.
One thing to think of as well is I think the last 3 games we have in March is away at Costa Rica, away at Mexico. So we have 2 very tough ones in our last set. So if we can mathematically eliminate, mathematically qualify for it before that last window, I will feel really good. But if we have to get points or win at Mexico and at Costa Rica, then we're screwed already. That's where the hole you put yourself in this early. Now, the next window, we have Jamaica at home, Panama away, Costa Rica at home. You can finish with 9 points there, okay? Mm-hmm. Panama is probably the worst one that you'll have to face. So Costa Rica at home, we can beat them at home. They have not been good. They're at the bottom of the table right now, okay? Jamaica just lost to Panama 3-0. We can beat Jamaica at home. Costa Rica at home, I already mentioned Panama. Okay, so that's all 3. So if you were to get, at best, 3 points each, you're at 9 points. If we draw with El Salvador, I keep doing that. If we draw at Honduras, we have 3 points plus the 9. We'd have 12 points after 6 games and be averaging 2 points per game, which might be enough to get us, which should definitely be enough to get us to qualify. But
this next stretch is crucial.
October's crucial.
Yeah, you don't want to get, like you said, you don't want to get to those last 3 games and have to get 6 points or 5 points or something crazy like that, because doing that against a Mexico team and Mexico, near impossible. And then playing Panama, Panama, I think it's at Panama. And then, wait, which one is it? Is it Costa Rica?
This window? October?
No, last. What's the last?
Last window, it's at Costa Rica, at Mexico, and then home Panama.
Against Panama.
Yeah, because we're away Panama next time. At least next time in October, we have 2 home games.
Yeah.
Instead of the 1. But
like we said, panic meter. Okay, Jordan, panic meter 1 through 10. Where do you sit?
Sitting at a 4.
Okay. I would say a 5.
Before Canada, I was at a 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say
so. I moved it 3 notches in 1 game. So
I would say 4 if I'm thinking about the idea that we have a full strength team. I'm at a 5 because Dest is hurt. McKinney's got this weird thing going on with
Reyna's hurt.
Protocols. Reyna's hurt. Timmy Weah's hurt.
Pulisic out of shape, maybe.
Pulisic,
Who knows?
yeah, and not having enough to like. And that's the other thing that we need to think about too, as U.S. fans, to not panic as much. Like I know some of your panic meters are at 9 or 10. I think the only reason that it shouldn't be, we have played these teams, and this is saying we've played these teams okay with as many guys if we had hurt and Pulisic not being in there to train with the team. And I know they've played some matches together, but like again, these teams, like because we didn't play because of COVID, like this team is still really inexperienced playing with each other. Like they really don't. And we keep finding these gems that like, okay, Acosta played well in Gold Cup, or Miles Robinson became this great center back overnight, it seems, in Atlanta. So you're playing with guys that haven't really played with each other at all. And you're finding new pieces that work. While I know this isn't a great time to try to figure that out, a lot of these teams are still figuring that out. They've played with each other forever. You've got a Mexican team that's played together forever. You've got Canada, who've got a nice mix of young and some of the older players. We've got a lot of really young players that are very, very talented, but they still haven't gotten their legs underneath them. Not to mention, we're in September. Most of these guys are coming off a European off period where they've been off for a month or a month and a half. So that's also another thing that's come into existence. So I think you've got all these things, all these factors mixed in. And here's a team, I think in this first window, if you can get away with 5 points, we can wipe the sweat from our face and say, okay, thank God we got through that. Now, next window, let's get 6 or 7 points.
The only reason I'm not higher than a 4, I think, is because we're at 14 games instead of 10 games this time.
Right.
If it was a 10-game thing, then I'd probably be at a 7 or 8 right now. But the fact that we're at a 14 games, there's more chances for these slip-ups.
Yeah, and everybody else is sitting with us.
I feel pretty good about facing Mexico just for how well we've played them recently.
Yeah.
Though that could be me being a little bit of a homer. So I guess we'll see how it goes from there. No, I'm about as talked out about this as I can be, I think, at this rate. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than we really need to make sure we get it at some sort of points on Wednesday. And that's unfortunate that that's where we're at right now, but that's what we need. I just wanted to quickly touch on the games that the MLS games that just happened. We had Nashville beat NYCFC on Friday 3-1. New England beat Philly 1-0. Just a complete reversal from last year when the Union had Revs number, especially at Subaru Park. Now at Subaru Park, it seems like the Revs have handled Philly pretty well. Portland beat Houston 2-0, and LAFC put 4 past SKC in a shocking result there. Vancouver beat Austin 2-1. And then Orlando beat Columbus 3-2. That Orlando game was wild. I was at my parents' house. We were flipping between Vancouver, Austin, and Orlando, Columbus. And the Orlando game, when we turned it on, was 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
Then we switched back to Vancouver, Austin when Orlando went into halftime. And then we come back from halftime and it's 2-2.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, geez. But, we were able to see Orlando win. Orlando got the 3 points. They their goal scorers were DK, Vander Vaarder, and Urso Jr. Then we had the Cincinnati lose to Miami. Miami won 1-0. That was a Breck Shea winning goal, as we mentioned him earlier. RSL 3, Dallas 2, and then Colorado beating San Jose 1-0. So some pretty crazy results here. Where we're at in the table is New England still in first on the East with 52 points. Orlando in second with 38 points. Nashville in third with 38 points. NYCFC fourth with 34 points. Philly, it seems like they've been stuck at 32 points for a while here. They're in fifth. Sixth is Montreal with 31, and DC in seventh with 30. Columbus in eighth with 27, then Atlanta in 9th with 27, and Miami up to 10th with 26 points. They're on the verge of a playoff spot. Chicago has 23 points after 11 games. Red Bulls in 12th with 22 points. Cincinnati still at that 17 points, and then 13th, and Toronto in 14th with 15 points. If we look at the West, a little bit of a shakeup. Seattle still top, 42 points, but Colorado in second with 41 points. And guess what? They have a game in hand to Seattle. So if they win that game, they are going to take over possession of first place of the West. SKC, 40 points in third place. And they've played 2 more games than the Rapids and 1 more game than Seattle. LA Galaxy in 4th with 36 points. Minnesota in 5th with 31 points. Portland in 6th with 30 points. RSL in 7th with 30 points. Then you have Vancouver in 8th with 29. LAFC in 9th with 27. San Jose with 26 points. Dallas with 25. And then Austin and Houston both at the bottom with 19 points. Whew. And now coming up, we have, like we mentioned, the World Cup qualifying games that are on Wednesday. That is Canada, El Salvador at 7:30, Panama, Mexico at 8:05, and Honduras, U.S. at 10:05 on Paramount Plus and Universo. Then on Friday, Atlanta versus Orlando on FS1, and Vancouver versus Portland at 10 o'clock on MLS ESPN Plus. Then on Saturday, we have Colorado versus LA Galaxy at 3:30. That's on Twitter, TDN, and Univision. Seattle versus Minnesota at 5 o'clock. New England versus NYCFC at 7 o'clock. Red Bulls versus DC at 7 o'clock. Cincinnati versus Toronto at 8. Miami and Columbus at 8. Montreal versus Nashville at 8. Dallas versus San Jose at 8:30. Houston versus Austin at 8:30 for another Texas derby. Kansas City versus Chicago at 8:30. All of those games are on ESPN Plus. And then on Sunday, LAFC versus RSL at 10:30. But yeah, so that about right. Any last thoughts, Logan, on either of your teams, the U.S. or Orlando?
Orlando fighting for second because nobody's going to catch the Revs. In the U.S. men's national team, while we are concerned, we still have time. Like, give us some time. If we lose tomorrow, Jordan and I might just start. Where should we align next? Like Canada, I think they're the next closest thing to us. So I think like a Canadian national team, or I might even jump on like England or somebody, just a bandwagon.
Yeah, well, that's why I followed Germany second. That's my last.
Yeah, I'm German too.
I got to see the World Cup win there, but yeah, doesn't feel as good as the U.S. You can follow our show on Twitter at Stateside Show, Instagram at Stateside Show, Facebook.com/Stateside Show, or email us statesideShow@gmail.com. You can review us on Apple Podcasts, and you can. That's it. Yeah, that's all you can do. But
all you're allowed to do. You can do
all you're allowed to do. But yeah, all the other places I mentioned. But thanks for giving us a watch, and have a great rest of your Labor Day.